Now it has come?
Yes, sir.
It has come, right? Visible to everybody. Okay, so we are going to learn about Ramakrishna Paramahamsa. I'm sure many of you know a little bit. Uh, Mostly we know him because of Vivekananda, right? And uh, okay, so a little bit about personal background. Why we stress personal background? Because it's very important. Most of the time for YCP exams, the questions are asked about the date of birth, parents. So his first name is Gadadhar Chattopadhyay. He's from Calcutta, Bengal. Date of birth, February 18, 1836. Place of birth, Kamarpukar village, Hooghly district, Bengal presidency. Parents, Khudiram Chattopadhyay, father, and Chandramani Devi, mother. PPT is clear, right? You all can see them properly?
Yes, sir.
Okay, thank you. Uh, Parents are Khudiram Chattopadhyay, father, and Chandramani Devi, mother. Wife is Saradamani Devi. Religious views, Hinduism, Advaita. Philosophy, Shakto, Advaita Vedanta, Universal Tolerance. Dead 16th August 1886. Place of Samadhi, Kosipur, Calcutta. Memorial is Kamarpukar village, Hooghly district, West Bengal, Dakshineshwar Kali temple. Most of the things have happened there only. Compound, Kolkata, West Bengal. Who was Ramakrishna Paramahamsa? One of the most prominent religious figures of India during the 19th century. As we have said in both the classes, most of these people have come together at a time when India was fighting for independence. So if you look at the whole of this modern yoga gurus, all of them had a very uh, distinct role to play in India's independence, in the India's freedom struggle. Sri Ramakrishna Paramahansa was a mystic and a yogi who translated complex spiritual concepts into lucid and easily intelligible manner. He had a different answer, very unconventional way of answering. He pursued the divine throughout his life in various forms and believed in divine embodiment of the supreme being in every individual, sometimes believed to be the modern day reincarnation of Lord Vishnu. Ramakrishna was born as Gadadhar Chaudhary. Once again, just to recap, February 18, 1836, to Khudiram Chattopadhyay and Chandramani. The poor Brahmin family hailed from Kamarkapur village of Hooghly district in Bengal presidency. Young Gadadhar was sent to village school to learn Sanskrit, but was very reluctant student. He would often play truant. He would play all kind of masti. He loved to paint and create clay models of Hindu god and goddesses. This child was a totally different child. He was attracted to folk and mythological stories which he had heard from his mother. He gradually learned Ramayana, Mahabharata, Purana, and other holy literature by heart, just by hearing it from priests and sages. Young Gadadhar loved the nature so much that he used to spend much of its time in orchards and on the river banks. So, as a small child, he was showing extraordinary brilliance. There are a lot of study which shows the Western people shows that the Western psychologists say that no, there was something very different in his personality. Ramakrishna was probably the most celebrated mystic of all times. A simple man, sometimes with childlike enthusiasm, he explained the most complex concepts of spiritual philosophies in most simple parable stories and anecdotes. His words flowed from a deep sense of belief in the divinity and his experience of embracing God in very real form. He directed that the ultimate goal of every living soul is God realization. Having practiced different facets of Hinduism as well as other religions like Islam and Christianity, he preached that all these religions were
Move the
different
screen.
paths.
Hemjith, move the
Yeah.
screen. Screen is not moved.
Huh?
Move the screen.
Slide, we are on the first slide.
Sir,
Is it?
yes,
Huh.
sir. Still first one only.
Okay, okay. I'm so sorry.
Hmm.
This you have seen, right? Hello?
Yes,
Yes,
sir. We are
personal
in.
details slide we can see now. The next one. Yeah.
Okay. This one is clear. It's done.
Yes, sir. Yes.
Next one, this one is also seen.
We
Right.
can't see the next one, sir.
Sir, the screen. Yeah, slide is not
Second,
moving, sir.
it is stuck on the second slide.
1 minute. Now,
Yes.
I think this is better. Okay. So this is just about who was Ramakrishna, one of the most prominent religious figures of India during the 19th century. Ramakrishna Paramahansa was a mystic and yogi who translated complex spiritual concepts into lucid and easily intelligible manner. He pursued the divine throughout his life in various forms and believed in divine embodiment of the supreme being in every individual, sometimes believed to be the modern day reincarnation of Lord Vishnu. Early life. Now screen is moving, right?
Yes, sir.
Okay. Well, just to recap the same thing, young Gadadhar was sent to the village school. He was more interested as a child in learning other things, Ramayana, Mahabharata, Puranas, all those things. Uh, he had a different approach to things. Okay. It seems, when we go into Vivekananda, we will tell exactly what he did with Vivekananda's first meeting. He had a deep sense of belief in the divinity and his experience of embracing God in very real form. He directed that the ultimate goal of every living soul is God realization. Having practiced different facets of Hinduism as well as other religions like Islam and Christianity, he preached that of all these religions were different paths that led to a single goal, God. Personal life. Sorry, his conversation with his disciples were recorded by his devotee Mahendranath Gupta, and the collective work was titled as Sri Ramakrishna Kathamrita, the nectar of Sri Ramakrishna's words. To get rid of the thoughts that he belonged to a higher Brahminical caste, he began to eat food cooked by the Shudras or lower caste. If you see that earlier, Dayananda Saraswati also, you will see, they were trying to break the Brahminical tradition and the caste systems. So Ramakrishna also continued the same way. Personal life. Ramakrishna was married to 5-year-old girl, Mukhopadhyaya, from a neighboring village when he was 23 years of age in 1859. The couple stayed apart until Saradamani came of age and she joined her husband at Dakshineshwar at the age of 18. Ramakrishna proclaimed her as the embodiment of Divine Mother and performed the Shodashi Puja with her in the seat of goddess Kali. Sorry. She was an ardent follower of her husband's philosophy and took up the role of mother to his disciples with ease. Early days. From a very young age, Gadadhar was religiously inclined and he would experience episodes of spiritual ecstasy from everyday incidents. He would go into trance while performing pujas or observing a religious drama. He had all that internal power. The divine power used to be, always coming out. After the death of his father, the responsibility of the family fell on his elder brother, Ramakumar. Ram Kumar left home for Calcutta to earn for the family, and Gadadhar, back in his village, started performing regular worshipping of the family deity, previously handled by his brother. He was deeply religious and would perform the pujas ardently. Meanwhile, his elder brother had opened a school to teach Sanskrit and Calcutta and served as a priest at different socio-religious functions. This is the time where changes really happened for Ramakrishna. He also joined his brother. Foremost among his innumerable disciples was Swami Vivekananda, who was instrumental in establishing the philosophy of Ramakrishna at a global stage. Vivekananda established the Ramakrishna Mission in 1897, to carry out the vision of his Guru Ramakrishna and dedicated the establishment in servitude of the society. Other disciples who renounced all ties to family along with him participated in the formation of Ramakrishna Mutt along with Vivekananda, where Kali Prasad Chandra, Swami Abhedananda, Sashibhushan Chakrabarti, Swami Ramakrishnananda, Swami Brahmananda, Swami Saradananda, among others. All of them were instrumental in propagating the teachings of Sri Ramakrishna, not just in India, but throughout the world. Ramakrishna suffered from throat cancer. In order to consult the best physicians of Calcutta, Ramakrishnan was shifted to a devotee's house in Shampurka by his disciples. But with time, his health started deteriorating and he was taken to a large house at Kosipur. His condition kept worsening, and on 16th August 1886, he passed away at the Kosipur Garden House. His whole philosophy, his whole life was different. The man who works for others without any selfish motive really does good to himself. It seems that when there was a discussion with the disciples, he said service to divinity. At that time, many people thought, you have to serve the divine. But only Vivekananda took that message and saying, service is divinity. So I need to serve the general public. And that's how Vivekananda took up the teaching far and wide, repeating the name of God in Kali Yuga. One should constantly repeat the name of God. The name of God is highly effective in Kali Yuga. The practice of yoga is not possible in this age, for the life of a man depends on food. Clap your hands while repeating God's name, and the birds of your sin will fly away. So, we will get to know more about Ramakrishna when we go through Vivekananda, because he has taken up the teaching from Ramakrishna to the next level. So, that is about Ramakrishna. When it comes from the exam point of view, understand very simple that these were all the gurus who came up in the time at the time when India was all the religion. India was continuously conquered from the 11th century, 12th century, 13th century, 14th century, up to 16th, 17th century, and finally the British was there. So a lot of these religious leaders came back to establish the real Hinduism and the real culture, and they all were instrumental for helping us to form the freedom movement. Shall we go to the next one? Plan, I have initiated some research. Okay. Born in 1718, 1798, just as the birth of the great rivers is hidden in the mountains, the life of the early years of Paramahamsa Madhavdasi remains in darkness. Very little information is there. I am trying to get certain things because he had met Aurobindo, he had met Krishnamachari. So when you go into the history of Krishnamachari, when you go into the history of Aurobindo, you will find some connection where they were all trying to revive Hinduism. He is known to have been born in a small village near Shantipur in Bengal area. Some places it is written that the Bengal in a Bengali guru, but not much information is there. After studying in Kolkata, he got a job at the age of 19 as a government official. Working in the judiciary department, he was terribly let down by the intrigues of the courthouse and resigned from the work at the age of 23. There were a lot of malpractices going on in the court, so he was very disillusioned and he left his job. Traveled all over India on foot in search of different yogic experts for 35 years. So he had traveled to many places like Afghanistan, many Muslim countries. So those information I'm trying to get for a purpose. Spent 12 years in solitude in Himalayas. Not much information is there with whom he stayed. In the 80s, he settled back in the banks of Narmada River. Exactly, this is a place called Malsar, which is near Baroda. In 1909, he organized an all India Sadhu meeting to modernize the order of hermits. This was the time most of his correspondence with Aurobindo, with Krishnamachari, and all those took place. He traveled on foot throughout India for 60 or 70 years to learn firsthand all knowledge about yoga. He acquired supernatural powers, siddhis, which only made him more humble. People began to follow him, and few hundred sadhus accompanying him everywhere. On one occasion in Karachi, he was criticized by a rich man for feeding all those sadhus. His response was, "It is God who feeds these people. I only deliver the good food. It is the duty of the rich to help the poor. A sadhu is not a beggar, but a wise man. It is God who comes before you in the form of sadhu to see how much devotion you profess to him. Those who can earn their food will never come to ask you for anything. Those who are not sadhus but are equally poor and have to beg were rich in previous life and have become poor to learn the meaning of charity." As we said, at the age of 80. So he decided to take roots in the Malsar on the banks of Narmada River. Till then, he was not teaching. 81 or 82, he was moving around. After the age of 81 or 82, only he started teaching yoga. For following Madhavdasi's tradition, he sought a disciple to transmit his knowledge to the next generation. By the age of 116, he had not found yet that disciple. Mani, later known as Yogendra, was 19 when his path crossed on the auspicious night of August 26, 1990. Anybody knows who's this Mani?
Yoga Institute Santa Cruz
Yes,
founder.
exactly. In fact, Yogendra ji spent maximum time. Kolananda ji actually spent only less than 3 years. So there is always a debate that real disciple is. However, the guru decided, you know, without any competition, both moved out to set up their own institute. So yeah, Yogendra ji was spent more time. Even those photographs which you see in the first, I was with that Santa Cruz Institute, Ansaji. In fact, she only gave me all the photographs. So, uh, so it's very interesting to see how he met Yogendra ji. The book, I have put the book down. Mani was invited by his roommate to witness Madhavdaji's talk in Mumbai. At first, Mani refused because he did not believe in sadhus, teachers, fakirs, or wizards who did nothing and who were ignorant. So much insisted his friend that he accompanied him. As soon as he entered the Madhavdasi compound, he got up from where he was and hugged him. "I've been waiting for you for over 100 years," he told. Mani left the residence where he lived and went to the ashram in Malsar. In 1917, during a trip to Matharan, and when a cart pulled by a man transported them, the man fell fulminated in the street and Madhavdasi also fell on the road. Mani observed a cobra moving away from the man's side. Watching the man for a few seconds, Madhavdasi passed his hands on his wounded foot and he got up and continued his activity. When they arrived at the boarding house where Madhavdasi was going, he asked Mani to prepare lime water for hand washing. The master washed his hands and water was completely green. The poison that was at the foot of the cart driver had passed into his hands and from these to the water. Very important. I have seen some of the photographs where he was in the photograph. People insisted that he should be in the photograph, and he did not want to say no. But when the photograph was clicked with the Siddhi, Ashta Siddhi, which we study in Patanjali and all, he vanished. So when the photo was developed, black and white photo was developed, his photo was not there. Paramahansa was very reluctant, but the patron was adamant. The group gathered and Paramahansa moved towards the center. The photographer arranged the group and clicked the camera. He called out the negative. Oddly enough, Paramahansa wasn't in the picture. Every other member of the group was on it. The tree that stood behind Paramahansa Madhavjasi was pictured. The Guru's sandals were in the picture, but he was missing. This is the state of Jivan Mukta when yogi gets rid of all responsibility, independent of the material world. In the performance of his duties, he acts like an empty mirror. He gives up his ego, the element I, which is the cause of reactions, reflections, including fantastic miracles such as those that appear in the state of the Dharma Mega Samadhi of yoga. In the state, yogi does not want to perform any miracles, does not even think about it. but the miracle still happened. Automatically, of course, by itself. A good man suffers, and we feel sorry for him. In Dharma Mega Yoga, the yogi sees that an innocent man suffers and the awareness. In 1921, at the age of 123 years, what the Guru left as a legacy? Two powerful institutes led by two powerful yogis. So, if you relate to him, you can literally understand the purpose of yogi is not to get siddhis. You have to go beyond that level. So that is the life of Madhav Jasi. Any questions? Inspiring sage whose presence gradually renowned the hills of Arunachal. Arunachal became famous of because of a guru. And why it is, we will go to it. Lived in the first half of the 20th century, known as the silent sage, changed the lives of many with his powerful gaze. Encouraged people to look within and decide whether they were actually the body or the changeless eternal within. It is appearing now. Slide is proper.
Yes, sir.
Sir.
Okay. Born on 30th December 1879. Remember, I'll be giving you one small Excel sheet which will have name, for the Guru's name, date of birth, date of demise. Okay. So you don't have to worry. 30th December 1879. Maiden name Venkatraman Iyer. Born at Tiruchi, Tamil Nadu. A Tamil Brahmin family. Attained liberation at the age of 16 years. Left home for Arunachala, a sacred mountain at Tiruvannamalai. Lived there till end of his life. Family. Father is Sundaram Iyer. Mother is Alagammal. Siblings Almelu, Nagasundaram and Nagaswamy. Passed away on April 14th, 1950 at the age of 70. Place of birth, place of death, Sri Ramana Ashram, Tiruvannamalai, Tamil Nadu. Cause of death, cancer. So whenever we teach this, people ask us, how come all the gurus get cancer? They ask, many people have died out of cancer. Somebody has died in a boat mishap. So, you have this prarabdha karma, sanchita karma. If you look at Vivekananda lived, I think, at the age of 40 or 41. So he has come in to fulfill certain things. Maybe his past life was good. That is why he has come in to fulfill the remaining part of his life by doing tremendous work in 20 years time, he changed the whole uh, landscape of India through his work. Ramana Maharshi, better known as Bhagwan Sri Ramana Maharshi, was an Hindu sage, spiritual philosopher, and Jivan Mukta, the enlightened one. Known as the sage of Arunachala, Bhagavan the Lord, and the great master. Ramana originally contributed to the technique of vichara, which is what we say reflection, self pondering, inquiry. You know, what they say in Kriya Yoga, Tapas, Swadhyaya, and Ishvara Pranidhan. Swadhyaya is what? It is not just self study, it's a study of yourself. Correct? So, the technique was Vichara. He read spiritual and mystic literature from an early age and got drawn towards the sacred mountain Arunachala in Tiruvannamalai and the 63 Nayanamars. A sudden death experience led him to become cognizant of a force, Avesham. It is getting the divine inspiration or, some kind of, energy which passes through, which he identified as his actual self or I. He later identified this with Shiva. He eventually renounced his worldly life and traveled in the sacred mountains Arunachala, where he became a sannyasin. Although not initiated formally and stayed there till his death, with time the number of his followers grew. They considered him as an incarnation of God and visited Arunachal to have his darshan. His ashram developed later, where he imparted his upadesha. Why he was considered as a darshan, it's very important to know. His ashram developed later was where he imparted his upadesha to his devotees and visitors. His upadesha gradually gained popularity in the West, making him an enlightened one across the globe. He was the second of the four children. He grew up with his brothers Nagaswami and Nagasundaram and sister Almelu. Ramana hailed from an orthodox Brahmin family from the lineage of Parashara Muni, which belonged to the Samartha denomination. They followed regular domestic worship of Shiva, Vishnu, Surya Devi, Shakti, and Ganesha. A paternal granduncle and paternal uncle of Ramana became sannyas. His Upanayana was held at the age of 7. He attended his village school for 3 years. At age 11, his father sent him to Dindigul to live with his uncle and study in English so that he could try for the Indian civil service. He stayed there for a year and attended Hindu school before relocating to Madurai in 1899 with his elder brother Nagasamy and his uncle after the latter was transferred there. According to B.V. Narasimha Swami, Ramana's sleep used to be so deep that neither any loud sound nor anyone beating his body would wake him up. He was actually in a trance. Possibly Ramana experienced intensive meditative states that occurred spontaneously when he was around 12 years old. Ramana lost his father on February 18, 1892. He studied at the Scots Middle School and then joined the American Mission High School. He became familiar with Christianity in the latter. The spiritual and mystic books that he read during his adolescence had a deep impact on Ramana. He got drawn from the holy mountain of Arunachal, Tiruvannamalai in November 1985 after reading the Tamil version of the essay poem Prabhulingali written by noted Indian Veershaiva poet Chamarasa, the life story of 63 Shaiva Nayanars, poets of Lord Shiva that he came to know about after reading the Tamil book Periya Puranam. Periya Purana means the old Puran, big one, written by Saint Sekisar, also had a great influence on him. This led him to comprehend the possibility of a divine union. Narasimha mentioned that in July 1896 at 16, Ramana suddenly experienced a fear of death. A flash of excitement or heat, just like Avesham, hit him, and he felt as it is a force or current had possessed him. And while his body became stiff, although initially Ramana thought that a spirit had taken over his body, this vision of death later led him to become aware of that. All of us know Jaggi Vasudev, right? Jaggi Vasudev also, his spiritual experience came up when he was,
Sadhguru.
yeah, Sadhguru, when he was in Chamundi Hills. He had gone there, generally goes with his friends. On one particular day, he went alone and he was lying on a rock. And suddenly from there, the Chamundi's power came up, Chamundi Hills. And that's how his transformation came. He asked himself what exactly dies and finally came to the conclusion that the current or force remains immortal while the body dies. He identified this current or force as a self, like Atman Brahman, and later perceived this as a personal god or Ishvara. The process of self-enquiry was thus initiated from his own awakening. Rightly told by one of you that who am I? Later in 1945, Ramana mentioned such insights to visitors Aham Spurana, self-awareness. He said that he could clearly perceive the Aham Spurana during the death vision while all the senses were benumbed and thus realized that the self-awareness which never decays or can never, the soul can never be affected by anything is what we call I and not the mortal body. He later called the death vision as Akrama Mukti, meaning sudden liberation, and said that he was overtaken by this before he could pass through the different stages of Krama Mukti or gradual liberation as maintained in the Jnana Yoga. See, if you look at our normal yoga practice, much of the time we are very much connected with the body consciousness. Okay, really, when you start practicing uh, more time, your body consciousness has to go in. You have to move away from the body consciousness. So unconscious mind is 90% concentrated on the body. So when you start counting, I'm going to keep for 10 breaths. By the time 10 breaths, no, unconscious mind will say release. If you go beyond 20, 30 breaths for each of the posture, your conscious mind becomes active. And that is the time the real benefit comes. You can practice and see. There are a lot of study on that. The experience of death, vision, and awakening made a profound impact in his life. He lost interest in school studies, relatives, and friends, preferred to be alone. He visited the Meenakshi temple daily, focused on the current and force, and got drawn to the images of the 63 Nayanamars and the Nataraja. On August 29, 1896, he left his home for good. Following this, he boarded a train and reached Tiruvannamalai on September 1, 1896. It is nothing but the realization happening, the self-realization. After reaching Tiruvannamalai, Ramana went to Arunachal temple dedicated to Lord Shiva and was situated at the base of Arunachal hill. It is believed that he performed his penance at the underground linga of the temple called the Patala Linga. According to sources, Ramana meditated and attained supreme salvation in the temple while vermin and pest, all kind of worms, pest beat his body. He was not knowing. He then went to Guru Murtam temple in February 1897, where a sadhu named Palaniswami visited him and eventually became his permanent attendant. Ramana gradually started attracting visitors. During this time, his family came to know about his whereabouts. Although his uncle Nelliyappa Iyer visited him and pleaded with him to return home, assuring that this ascetic life would not get disturbed, Ramana stayed motionless. Finally, his uncle had to give up. Later, he also refused his mother's request to return home. He went to Shiva temple at Palavakunnuru in September 1899. Soon he realized to live on Arunachal and moved upward in February 1899. He lived in the Sadguru cave and the Guhu Nama Shivaya cave briefly and then his Virupaksha cave for 17 years. His first teaching on his widely famous method of self-inquiry came as an answer of 14 questions on how to know one's true identity. That Shiva Prakasham Pillai, government official, asked him when Pillai visited Swami in 1902. These teachings were later published as Nanyar. After his mother's death, when Ramana settled near his Samadhi shrine, his devotees started to build an ashram near his mother's tomb. Initially, one hut was built near the Samadhi. Thereafter, huts were built by 1924, one opposite the tomb and the other towards the north. In 1928, the whole hall was constructed. Ramana lived there till 1949. With time, Sri Ramana Ashramam expanded and included facilities such as library, hospitals, post office. British writer Paul Brunton, who had first visited Ramana in January 1931, is believed to have introduced Ramana to the West and popularized the holy man in India through the books The Secret Path, A Search in Secret India. The same year, P.V. Narasimha wrote Ramana's biography, Self Realization. It's a wonderful book, The Life and the Teachings of Ramana Maharshi. Writer Arthur Osborne lived in his ashram for 2 decades. He wrote many books on Ramana and his teachings. He also founded and edited the English language quarterly magazine, The Mountain Path, published by the ashram. In 1949, Mauni Sadhu stayed in the ashram for several months. David Goldman lived in the ashram since 1976. If you all are interested, there are so many work on these people. All of them have been personally staying there. He has so far written or edited 14 books on Ramana. Other notable people such as Wu Li, Alfred Sorensen, Paramahansa Yogananda, and Swami Shivananda too have visited the ashram. Ramana underwent a surgery in February 1949 after a small cancerous lump was found on his throat in November 1948. In March 1949, another growth was spotted. This was followed by an operation and radiotherapy. Although doctor believed that to save Ramana's life, his arm would have to be fully amputated till the shoulder, the holy man refused to do it. Gradually, Ramana's health deteriorated, making him quite weak. He could hardly go to the hall. The visiting hours were cut by April 1950. Ramana died on 14th April 1950 at 8:47 p.m. A shooting star was seen during that time, which some of his devotees considered as synchronicity. Whatever is destined not to happen will not happen. Try as you may. Whatever is destined to happen will happen. Do what you may to prevent it. This is certain. The best course, therefore, is to remain silent. Very interesting to see this. Dakshinamurti, right? We all know Dakshinamurti is Lord Shiva, right? Dakshinamurti, Lord Shiva takes the form of Dakshinamurti with 4 hands. It is purely as a jnana, just to give discourses. It is believed that whoever does not have a guru, till he gets his guru, has to practice on Dakshinamurti, is equivalent to having a guru till then. There are two positions. One is sitting in the south facing, which is known as Dakshina, and the other one is sitting with 4 hands. So Dakshinamurti is basically when Shiva takes the form of a guru, and that time Shiva is the one who is giving knowledge. We know that Saraswati and other goddesses, but Shiva takes the form of giving. That is why most of the time, children for studies and all, they are taken to the Dakshina. Very few, I think only one temple is there where one of the Shivalinga has become Dakshinamurti Shivalinga. So that is where most of his guru was like Dakshinamurti or Lord Shiva. Happiness is your nature. It is not wrong to desire it. What is wrong is seeking it outside when it is inside. Very powerful saying, eh? Because he always believed in the self, in the self-awareness, in the Atman, which is ultimately what we are doing in yoga. Tiruvanmalai, this is one of the places where attributed to five. This is one of the places attributed to 5 elements. See the beauty of that: earth, water, fire, sky, and air. So if you take all your finger, you will have the thumb is your Agni, your index finger is your Akash, uh, the other one is your, the small finger, the long finger is your, one is Akash with a long finger, one is Prithvi, the small finger is your gel. This place is dedicated to fire elements, whereas Chidambaram is Akasha Sthala. It is believed that one attains salvation by merely thinking about Tiruvanmalai. The hill is said to be the abode of sages, located 187 kilometers from Chennai. This is the place. It's good to visit such places, and a lot of I think I'll put some of the books which I have read. Repeat the old practice. To whom do thoughts arise? Keep up the practice until there are no breaks in awareness. Practice alone will bring about continuity of awareness. We all know that in yoga. Keep your mind still. That is enough. You will get spiritual help sitting in the hall if you keep yourself still. Chitta vritti nirodha. The aim of all practice is to give up all practice. When the mind becomes still, the power of the self will be experienced. The waves of the self are pervading everywhere. If the mind is peace, one begins. Silence is most powerful. Speech is always less powerful than silence. Pranayam can also help to control the wandering mind and attain this one pointedness, and therefore it can be used. But one should not stop there. After obtaining control of the mind through pranayam, one should not rest content with any experience which may accrue therefrom, but should harness the controlled mind to the question, who am I, till the mind merges in the self. No one succeeds without effort. Those who succeed owe their success to perseverance. Perseverance is try and try and try. That's all. Any questions?